So the semi-finals are nearly here. My wild card is active, and here is my team selection. All right, before I get into any thoughts around who I'm going to pick ahead of the semi-finals, I thought it'd be worth looking at just how I've gotten on during the quarterfinals. I must say, not one of my better game weeks, but I think in general, there weren't many points to go around during the quarterfinals anyway. Harry Kane, Mbappe, Memphis Depay, my front three. Thankful that I put the captaincy on Depay for the final day. Managed to get an assist, which is something. Bruno Fernandes, Fabian Ruiz in my midfield, all on 3 points. Trent, Van Dijk, Ake, Stones, Teo, Hernandez in defence. Happy, of course, with the performances of my French and Portuguese defender. And then Pickford, Williams, Musiala, Gundogan on the bench. So in reality, I lost sort of 1 or 2 points on my bench. I was really disappointed to see that Trent didn't start on the right-hand side for England. I thought he would have done. He did come on and got me a point though, so I'll take that. But I was expecting him to start, so a little bit disappointed. But 44 points for the quarterfinals. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. All right then, so moving through things and my thought process around both playing the wildcard during the semi-finals and how to actually do so. Now, I've already made a wildcard draft video ahead of this, but that's kind of my recommendation for you as to what I think you should do with a wildcard draft if you had it. But I'm going to talk about now my team and the kind of risks and sort of changes that I personally want to make. But before going into that, it's important to know how many players you're allowed to pick per nation, which is 6 during the semi-finals and 8 during the final, and how many transfers we have available at each stage too. We got 4 free transfers to the semis and 5 for the final, and that ultimately might change your mind. If you're interested in my team selection, obviously I'm wildcarding, that might influence your decision. But also, you know, your team is your team. You're an individual, you should be able to make your own choices. So these kind of things, players you can pick per team, number of free transfers, etc., should influence your decisions on what you do with your specific team. And I've got a comment here from Vincent on a previous video of mine. If you're in doubt and want to play it safe with your wildcard, if you pick 4 players from 3 teams and 3 from the team you think is less likely to go through, that will leave you with 7 to 8 playing players in the final and 1 or 2 that you won't be able to get rid of on free transfers and you'll be left with. But ultimately, it's the final, the next stage, right? You don't need your bench, so you can afford to actually take a bit more of a risk than that. But Vincent, thank you very much again for your comment. This sort of shows how to play the wild card in the most safe way. So next up, I've got a couple of sources of predictions for goals, clean sheet odds, win percentage, draw percentage, etc. I've already gone through the Elevenify stats in previous videos, so most people, I imagine, are sort of well versed with them. So you can see the goals there. England are the most likely team to score the most goals according to Elevenify. Spain close second, France third, Netherlands fourth. Clean sheet odds, England top, Spain second, France third, Netherlands fourth. Kind of follows the same trend with win percentage as well. So that's what Elevenify is saying. I also came across an account on Twitter, RobTFPL, who takes his data from SpreadX to make some match projections. Slightly different to what we're seeing from Elevenify, but not totally different. Got England and Spain joint most likely to get a clean sheet, 34%. France third, Netherlands fourth. Goals, England top, Spain second. And France and Netherlands are joint on 1.08. So a couple of bits of statistics there to help you decide who the most likely teams are to progress, who's going to keep a clean sheet, who's going to score goals, etc. So a little bit of projection stats there to, well, that's going to inform my team selection in a little bit, but also to help you out as well. Now, we have seen there, right, according to the statistics at least, well, the projections, that France are the 3rd most likely team to keep a clean sheet during the semi-finals. But this is where my opinion comes in compared to the stats. I think fantasy football is all about a combination of using data and statistics and your own opinion to build a team, right? I think that's the best way to play the game. And in my opinion, I think the French defence is the best in the tournament. I do. Statistically, they've only conceded 1 goal, and that's a Lewandowski penalty. So they have not conceded this tournament yet from open play. And I just think they're the best defence. Defensively wise, in terms of individual players, Teo Hernandez, Upamecano, Maignan, really solid keeper, Koundé at right back, and Saliba. It's a ridiculous defence. And the midfield that they have in front of them as well, Kante, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Rabiot, they've got so many good players in their midfield, certainly from a defensive perspective, that just makes them so solid. So yes, the statistics, the projections, etc. may say one thing, but this is where my individual opinion comes in. It's my team selection after all, right? I really back this French defence. I know they've got Spain, who have been really good from an attacking perspective. Yamal, Morata and Williams, Ruiz, Olmo, they've been great from an attacking perspective. But that French defence and midfield are so solid that I would personally put them as one of the top teams in my mind to keep a clean sheet alongside England. I slightly disagree with those projections personally, and I'd say the French defence are worth picking from. And also, I have to say, there is probably a little bit of bias here. I'm conscious of that, being an Englishman myself, but I really do think of all 4 teams in the semi-finals, I'd probably put England as my favourites to progress. And they do have the joint best in terms of the Rob TFPL stats, and the best, according to Elevenify, the best clean sheet odds for the semi-finals. So why would you not pick some England defenders based on that, right? And I think with Luke Shaw coming back into the fold, I imagine we'll probably get an England lineup leak ahead of the deadline. We always do from the English press this tournament. I think Luke Shaw, he made such an impact when he came on against Switzerland. Just having a left-footed left-back to actually play for them made such a difference. Yeah, I just think Shaw's going to be a nice differential, and you might not be able to get him if you're not on your wildcard necessarily. So I think if you are on your wildcard like I am, or even just using a free transfer to be honest, he could be a really nice player to bring in, but you just want the security and the confidence from the leak that he's going to start. Obviously, there are other England defensive options you can go for. These would be my 5. Obviously, Pickford in goal. Walker's going to play. Stones is going to play. I'd imagine Gahey's going to be back in the lineup too, and Shaw as well. This is what I think the starting 5 will be. Okay then, with that in mind, here is the defence that I've gone for. I've gone for a couple of Netherlands players because ultimately I think I want to cover them. If England do get knocked out by them, I'd be a little bit scared to not have at least some Dutch coverage. And I think the best way to do that from a defensive perspective is to pick Verbruggen, who is the cheapest goalkeeper remaining in the competition still, and Van Dijk, who I think carries a lot of goal threat, good for ball. I just think he's probably the best defender you can pick from the Netherlands. Outside of that, I've gone for a France triple up, based on my opinion of them, in my mind, being the best defence in the competition. Koundé, Hernandez and Maignan being my choices there. I like the idea of having Maignan in there. I think he's more likely to keep a clean sheet than Unai Simon of Spain, in my opinion. And it also obviously makes sense to have a goalkeeper that plays on the next day. Koundé and Theo Hernandez, I think, probably offer the most attacking threat of that French defence, although France have not looked all that good going forwards. I've gone for them. And then Shaw and Mark Gahey from the English defence. Gahey has been absolutely fantastic for England, and he's got a lot of ball recoveries. Probably doesn't really offer any goal threat, but given he's so good for ball recoveries, that kind of promises you points in every game. Even if England concede, I expect Gahey to get, a couple of points at least for ball recoveries. And I've already spoken about Luke Shaw. If it's confirmed or very doubtful he's in the starting lineup, I'd probably just go for John Stones or Kyle Walker. But for now, Luke Shaw is in my team. Just a couple of things to discuss before going into my forwards and midfields. I don't like the French attack, with one exception. I think you have to always consider Kylian Mbappe as an option in fantasy football. He's the best player in the world, takes their penalties, absolute nation's talisman. I know he's not himself at the moment, but he's historically a big game international tournament player. So I don't think you can ever count out Kylian Mbappe. But beyond that, I've been really disappointed by the French attack. They haven't scored an open play goal yet this tournament. And for me, it's really unclear as to exactly how they line up. They've got, obviously you can see there, Thuram, Koulibaly, Griezmann, Dembele, Coman, and Giroud, who I haven't even put in this image. They've got so many attacking options. It's completely unclear as to how they're going to line up, and they're not really scoring that many goals. So outside of Mbappe, I'm going to be avoiding the French attack. It's probably not the most news-breaking or game-changing news to suggest that I think Jude Bellingham is a good option in this game. He's one of the most popular players already. So if you're watching this video, you might already have him in your team. But for a wildcard, I think he's probably one of the best players to go for. I know Saka scored in the game against Switzerland, but I still have a feeling, just in my mind, that Bellingham is probably the best English midfield option. And what I like about Jude Bellingham is his price point means, being the most expensive midfielder in the game, that if England do get knocked out, you can replace him with absolutely anyone, and it doesn't leave you in any sort of financial issues. And also, it means you can replace him with someone quite substantially cheaper, which could mean you could upgrade positions elsewhere if you need to. So for me, I think all of that combined means that Jude Bellingham is kind of a shoo-in for this draft, in my opinion. Plays every minute of every game, pretty reasonable for ball recoveries. I expect him to get some ball recovery points just with the way that the England v Netherlands game will play out. He's He's got 2 Player of the Match awards to go with his 2 goals. That's a decent amount of points there. If he does score against the Netherlands, he's going to be a bit of a darling, I think, for the Player of the Match award. And just going back to the fact, England, of all the 4 teams in the tournament left, they are the most likely team, according to both of the projections that we've seen. Well, joint, I guess, with Spain, right? On the Rob T FPL stats, that is. They're the most likely team to progress to the semi-finals, and I also believe they are too. So for that reason, I have to say Jude Bellingham is going to be in my team. I must admit, though, when picking my midfield, I was left with a bit of a dilemma. Having said that, I don't really think France are going to score that many goals. I back England to get through. I also think the French are decent defensively, and I think England are probably good to pick from. Picking any midfielders outside of the English ones is quite difficult, but I think you have to go for a triple up. Well, I've gone for a triple up of Spanish midfielders. Despite backing the French defence to the hills, I can't look past Ruiz, Olmo and Williams, right? Because if they do score, these guys are going to be involved in it. I've been impressed by all 3 this tournament, and I'd probably say Williams is just a little bit ahead, in my mind at least, of Lamine Yamal. So I've gone for these 3 alongside Jude Bellingham, who I've just spoken about, and Declan Rice, who isn't the most exciting from an attacking perspective. He could, of course, knock in an assist or a goal from outside the box, of course, against the Netherlands. But he's been exceptional this tournament for ball recoveries, and he's ticked along with 5, 6, 7 points every time he's stepped out on a pitch. He's obviously going to start for England, probably one of their most important players, going to play every minute of every game. He's a good option, and yeah. The 3 Spain midfield is kind of a bit contradictory to what I said about the French defence, but given there are only 4 teams left in the tournament to pick from, and I think England are the most likely team to go through, I can't really pick any Dutch midfielders alongside. So I've gone for those, right? It's a bit of a sort of, oh yeah, it's hard to argue that, I guess, but hopefully you can see my logic behind doing so. The attack, though, I would say is kind of wide open. Mbappe, Depay and Kane are the 3 that I've gone for so far. But I think there's definitely opportunity to pick other players. Like I said, Mbappe in my mind is the best player in the world. The French talisman on penalties. I just think he has a chance of scoring, even if he's not on top form, right? So I've gone for him, and he's going to be my captain on the first day. Memphis Depay alongside him. Yes, Cody Gakpo's had a great tournament, arguably better. Well, definitely better than Depay has had so far. But he's owned by quite a lot of the game, and I'm looking to gain some ground. So I've gone for Depay over Gakpo because I do think Depay is going to take the penalties for the Netherlands if they get one, and he's going to be on some of the free kicks too, which Gakpo won't be. And then I went for Harry Kane as my 3rd striker. Looking at the goal scoring odds, England are top, certainly for Elevenify. And if England score, surely Harry Kane's got to be involved, even though he's not had the best tournament so far. I would say Morata is a perfectly decent alternative, could well be on penalties for Spain. I think there's still a little bit of an argument as to whether it's going to be him or Rodri. But like I said, I just back the French defence, and picking 4 Spain attackers to go against a French defence that I back, it's a hard one for me. So there's only 4 teams left in the tournament, so there are going to be some of these kind of 50-50 hard decisions to make. I've gone for Kane based on that because I have less Dutch defenders than I do French ones. So going for Morata, kind of counterproductive. Hopefully you can see the logic behind my picks, and that's my team. It's hardly even worth showing my squad selection screen, basically. I've picked all the players that are playing on the 9th of July to go in the starting 11 so far. Mbappe's my captain on the first day. I'll probably captain Kane on the second day, or maybe Declan Rice just for those guaranteed points. There's 2.4 million in the bank spare, so if there's any doubt about Shaw, Gahey starting, I can easily upgrade them to someone else. There's also enough cash to go from Rice to Saka as well. I'm personally backing the consistent bonus points for Rice ahead of the slight chance of Saka getting attacking returns, basically. But your opinion might be different. You might want to go for Saka as well. And just wanted to talk through basically some other options I have with this team with the money that's in the bank. All right, and there we have it. That's my team selection as it stands ahead of the semi-finals. Now, usually I do a deadline live stream ahead of the deadline, but unfortunately I'm busy on Wednesday night, so I won't be doing one. This is pretty much what my team's going to be. There might be 1 or 2 changes depending again on the England league for the starting lineup, but I think other than that, we're pretty much there. So if you wanted to know what my team's going to look like, this is probably your best bet. I mean, it's my team selection video after all, right? If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if you would make any other changes to this team. I'd really appreciate it if you enjoyed the video, if you subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.